super hyper smart on figuring out the name.
It had to be insurance.
Welcome back to Noob School. As always, we're interviewing great business people, and these stories are meant to help you get better at sales. Don't forget to check out noobschool.org and contact me if I can help you with your sales. Enjoy the show. All right, welcome back. Today's podcast is going to be a little bit different because we're doing Q&A. Some of our noobs, some of our followers have submitted questions about sales, and I'm going to read them from a little teleprompter over here and come up with hopefully a good answer. So we'll see how it goes. The first question came from Dan Horst, H-O-R-S-T. Dan wants to know, how can folks that don't have direct sales experience, how can they break through and get a direct sales type job when they don't have that experience? So here's a couple of answers I have for you. Hopefully some of these will work. First of all, ask the person, the hiring person, what it is that you need to have. What do they think that you can do over the next year or two to qualify, to get that job? So if you're working, let's just say you're trying to get a job with IBM software, big software outfit, and they're saying, no, you got to have experience before you come here. Make sure you know what their definition of experience is. What other places have people worked, and what kind of performance have they delivered to get the job at IBM? And I'd go so far as to try to pin them down like a good salesperson would as to, if I go to work for ABC Corporation over here and I get my quota for 4 out of 6 quarters, then when you have your spot, you're going to offer me a job. So just the process of going through that kind of definition with them, that might get you the job right there. So don't just say, doggone it, I didn't get it again, I don't have any experience. Find out from them exactly what you have to do to get the job. If you can't get them to talk that openly with you, another thing you can do is just go work at other direct sales companies. If you're shooting for the moon, if you're going for IBM, or you're trying to work for Apple or some Salesforce, some big major player, and you can't get in because you don't have the experience yet, go get some. Work at a lesser place. Work at a place where you might even be working on commission, selling roofing or solar, something where you can generally get hired quicker and get some experience out in the field actually selling stuff. So when you go back in there and try to, up yourself to a higher level type job, you've got some experience to go on. So no one can stop you from getting the commission-only job in direct sales. So those are 2 ideas I have for you, and good luck to you. Okay, the next question comes from my old friend, Al Ford. Al and I played basketball together at Citadel a long time ago, and Al also played the alto saxophone. And I can remember talking to him about playing the saxophone, and kind of exposed me to it. And then, many years later, I got into it myself. So thank you, Al. Thanks for getting me into the horn. But Al's question is, he works for Xerox. He probably knows more about sales than I do, but he says, should a sales rep be working for the client or with the client? Well, it's probably a debatable answer, but I would say you want to be working with your client, not for them. I believe in equal business stature. That when you go into a sales situation or any kind of business brokering or partnership or anything you're doing from a business sense with another company or another person, is you should be thinking in terms of equal business stature. So don't be thinking like, I'm working for this person, that person's going to tell me what to do, and I'm going to run around and get it all for them and bring it up to them, and maybe one day they're going to give me a few breadcrumbs. No. You want to think, I'm going to be working with that person and have kind of a grown-up discussion that, hey, if we're going to be working together, I'm going to benefit this way and you're going to benefit this way, and that's going to make a good long-term partnership. So let's work together for kind of mutually good outcomes. So Al, I would say you want to work with your client. You want to work together and not for them, not at all. All right, we've got another question from my friend, my old Citadel Bulldog friend, Al Ford. with Xerox. Al says, should you approach your clients differently based on their status? And I think what he means by that is maybe it's a smaller company and it's a brand new lead versus a stronger company that y'all have been working with for a while. Should you approach them differently? And my answer is, of course you should, right? I mean, I think you give greater deference to the bigger company, the one you've done some work with in the past. You go in there assuming we're going to continue to build on the partnership. We're going to, work together on more projects. We're going to give them some time without thinking about what we're getting in return necessarily, since we have kind of a relationship already. On the other hand, with a smaller, lesser known prospect, I think you want to be much more matter of fact. You want to be kind of by the book, be honest with them and say, let's talk together honestly and openly right now up front and figure out whether or not we have a match or not. And if we do, we can figure out ways to start working together. And if we don't, I don't want to waste your time. So I think you want to be much more kind of adult, matter of fact with a brand new prospect, particularly a smaller one, compared to somebody that you're already working with and somebody that where you're going to be a little more lenient with your time. The question number 4 is from Eric Mitchell. Eric is one of the top real estate sales professionals in Greenville County, if not the top one. He's right up there, and Eric has also been on our podcast, and he submitted a question and said, hey, John, what's your most embarrassing moment in sales? And it took me a while to come up with just one because there's several, but one of them was we had a big customer, Fortune 50 customer called Youre Corporation up in Detroit, and we won like a Vendor of the Year award. And so they were like, come up here, tour the place, meet the CEO, go to dinner, get the award. And we decided to fly up that morning. So we went out there at the airport early and we flew up there. We literally were going to fly up in the morning, do our tour, have dinner, meet the CEO, and then fly back like the 9:30 flight back to Greenville. So all I took was like a little clipboard or something. And I get up there, I figured out I had the wrong clothes on. I had like suit pants from one suit and a jacket from something else. They weren't. I mean, it was like black and blue or blue and black. It was very odd, and I got away with it. And I don't think no one came out and said anything. But I think my rule there, kind of what I learned was, if at all possible, just don't be in such a big hurry when you travel. Right? I could have easily gone the day before. Could have gone midday the day before, gotten up there, worked, taken some Detroit customer out to dinner, and then had plenty of time to get dressed and kind of be exactly looking. I should have been looking exactly right if I'm going to be eating dinner with the CEO of a Fortune 50 customer. And here I am. I look like some kid trying to get ready for the prom in high school. I can't find my shoe, that kind of thing. So I say when you get your shot to be with the top dogs, take your time and get it just right, and don't be in too big a hurry. Should never be in too big a hurry when you travel, I don't think. All right, the next question is from John Walsh. John's one of our old data streamers, and he submitted a question that said, how do you get to the decision maker in a deal? Very good question, and something that most young salespeople struggle with, and certainly I did too as a young salesperson. But there's a couple of ways to do it, and here's one. Is when you're talking to your prospect, who very likely is not the decision maker, okay, not the person who's going to sign the contract, and you're to the point where they really have admitted that they have a problem, they've admitted that he thinks they have the money to solve the problem, and he or she wants to get this done. So we're kind of to that point in the sale where they really want it to make it happen. Then I think you have every right, if you're positioning this as you and I are now sitting on the same side of the table. And what that means is I would like you to get my product and you would like to get the product. So now we're on the same side of the table. And the question is, how are we going to get this approved in your company? How does this normally happen at your company to get an approval? Who signs the contract? Who does this have to go to next? And so, a lot of that has to do with making sure you ask the question at the right time in the sales cycle where they've kind of already gotten on the same side of the table as you, and how you say it. I think if you just come out and say, who signs this, or who's the approver, or who's got the power in your company, people can take that the wrong way. It's like demeaning them. But if you say it very nicely, and this is for both of our benefit, who's going to sign it? Let's make sure we got everything that they want, before we present this. I think that's the better way to do it. So hopefully you have a champion at your company who will level with you, get on the same side of the table, and help you get there. Next question is from my friend Barkley Rickman. Barkley and I graduated high school together at Christ Church a few years ago, and then Barkley went on to NC State and big Wolfpack fan. And now Barkley is a crackerjack real estate professional with the Parker Group right here in Greenville. So Barkley asked the question, when do you know when to, let's just say fish or cut bait? He's in the real estate business. I think what he's asking is, how far do you need to go with the prospect before you figure out they're really not going to do anything and you should spend your time in other places? That's a tough one, Barkley. It's a good question. I think there's a couple of things you can do. One is you can do kind of a probing question. If you start to feel like that it's not going to happen, if, like, let's say some of the signs start to appear, like they're not calling you back, they don't seem as interested, they're not sending you information like they used to, so you're not getting kind of the energy from them you used to. I think it's okay, and I mean this, you can do it in a very honest way, to reach out to them either on a phone call, a lunch, an email, whatever you feel is most appropriate. Just say, I'm getting the feeling that this is not a high priority for you anymore. Based on, some other stuff that seems to be going on, I'm not getting phone calls and return calls, and that's completely okay. So I'd like to be your real estate agent for a long time, and it doesn't have to be right now. So if you like, why don't we just put this on the back burner, and maybe we circle back a little bit later this year. So, most people, let's just say something's going on in their world they don't want to even talk about. Maybe they're going through a divorce, or maybe there's some problem with their business, things that might not tell you, but they just might avoid you. And so you could just say, let's just back off. I'm getting some weird vibes here, and we'll look at it again toward the end of the year. They will thank you. They'll be so pleasantly surprised that someone said that versus, hey, let's make an offer. Let's make an offer. Let's do it before the rates go up, that kind of thing. So I would kind of go opposite and just say, let's put it off. And oftentimes you'll also hear they'll come back and say, no, Barkley. No. Don't take that the wrong way. We were just on vacation. I've got to find this lake house I've been looking for. So please, let's find it. So I think that question, that kind of honest, let's put things off, let's take a time out, that will flush out whether or not, you want to fish or cut bait with that particular prospect. Okay, the next question comes from my friend Jeff Wolf. Jeff is, besides being a fantastic tennis player, is also one of the best one of the best insurance agents in town. Jeff asked the question, how do you find out from someone, if you're trying to sell to someone who's already got coverage from somebody else? So I think in the insurance world, what he's getting at is most businesses, they have to have insurance. I think it's a law. You have to have some modicum of insurance for any kind of business. So when Jeff goes to sell a company, the easiest objection of all time is for them to say, well, thanks for coming by, Jeff, but we already have insurance. So I think that happens every time when you're selling business insurance. And so Jeff's question is, how do you overcome that? and he gave me a little bit of an answer. Jeff, so kind to give me the question and the answer, but he says that the good answer there is to ask them, to say, great, I'm glad you're covered. Can you tell me what it is you like most about your current relationship? So it's psychological warfare, but he's saying, tell me what you like about them. And what the people will most likely do when they hear that, instead of agreeing with you and telling you what they like about them, they're going to say, well, I don't like them that much. Rates go up every year, and last year we had a car fire, and they wouldn't cover it because it's whatever. So, if Jeff would say, tell us why you don't like your current vendor, what are they going to do? They're going to say, well, wait a second, we do like them. We've known Charlie for 24 years. And, they're going to start telling you other stuff. So he's suggesting, which I think is a good answer, is to kind of go opposite and tell us what you like about them. And many times they're going to say this and that and this and that we don't like. And that's where we can come in as salespeople and say, well, if you really want to replace those things, we'd like to get a shot at showing you how we would be different in those particular areas. So good question and answer, Jeff. Okay, next question. This is from Kevin Price. Kevin is one of my favorite College of Charleston Cougars. Worked with Kevin for many years. He's now, I think he's head of. He's just got a big job, head of the whole product for the old data stream EAM thing globally. So every time I get a Facebook thing from him or LinkedIn, he's in some different country. So Kevin's done really well. But Kevin has a good question here that I think a lot of salespeople can learn from. And the reason he's asking this particular question is because in his job as head of product for this big company, he gets asked all the time, hey, I need you in this to go see this client in Dubai or this client in, Silicon Valley or wherever it is, New York. We need Kevin to show up and talk to him. Kevin wants to know, before he goes, why am I going there? And why does the prospect want me there? As he put it, why am I here and why is the prospect here? And it's a really good question. Before you send out, your resources, whether it's you or the CEO of your company or your consultants on a sales mission, I think you use that as a way to flesh out from the prospect, why do you want us there? What's going to happen if we're there? Why do you want these particular people? What do you want them to do when they're there? What's going to happen as a result of it? And when will we get the results? So it's the easiest thing in the world if you're a buyer just to say, hey, why don't you send over your CEO? We'd like to meet him. Well, that'd be fun to meet the CEO. But then I think the pushback is, I think we can do that. But before I go to him and get on his calendar, tell me what's going to happen. What's the meeting going to look like? What questions might you ask? What are you looking for in answers? What happens as a result of it? And sometimes you can make a lot of progress on the sales cycle just getting through those questions. So by the time Kevin or the CEO show up, it's kind of a fait accompli, right? We kind of already know what's going to happen. We're there to sign the contract. So great question from Kevin. He has been misused many times, I'm sure, traveling around the world, showing up for these things. And I think he's learned the hard way. Let's find out what's going to happen if I show up. So good question, Kevin. Next question is from Frank Blackwell. Frank, one of my favorite Furman paladins. Frank had many years as an executive with ScanSource, and now I believe he's moved on and doing a secret startup. He told me he was doing a startup, but I don't know what it is yet. But anyway, Frank's been a great sales executive for many years, and his question is, when you have a client complaint, do we look at it as a negative or a positive, a negative or an opportunity? And of course the answer is an opportunity, right? What other choice do we have? Well, we could jump up and down, we could throw our clipboard, we can yell at somebody. there's a lot of things we can do that just aren't going to help the situation. So every now and then a client's not going to be happy or something's going to go wrong. Well, what's good about it? Well, it's good that we have a chance to talk to them about this subject, right? I mean, we can deal with the situation, and we have a chance to show them how we're going to perform, when the chips are down. So sometimes when you go through this fire with the client and you help work through and you fix it, you come out the other side and you're in better shape than you were before. Now, I don't think we ought to have these problems on purpose, but when they do occur, I want you to look at them as an opportunity, dig in there with the prospect, to the customer, tell them you're sorry, you wish it wouldn't have happened, but now you're there together. How can we work through this and make something positive happen and make it so it's not going to happen again? So always look at any type of situation that pops up with your customer as an opportunity to make things better. Good question, Frank. All right, welcome back. We have a new development. My friend Crawford Keys just finished a podcast with us, and he's going to join us for the rest of the Q&A. So welcome aboard, Crawford.
It's a pleasure to be here, John.
And we have not rehearsed this.
We have not.
Okay. So next question comes from my friend Bo Still. Bo, I know from Spartanburg, going back to high school tennis days. He was a great high school tennis player, probably still a great tennis player. But Bo's a salesman now, sells some kind of construction-related supplies. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, Bo asks, how does a salesperson develop a long-term client? How do you get people to buy from you over and over again? And I've got some ideas on that, but I think, Crawford, you've had some long-term clients. Why don't you give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, Bo, if you're still playing tennis, I've got some friends and some rackets in my car. I've done a few of those. For this one is really simple to me. It's give a damn. Care deeply about what the person on the other side of the table is trying to achieve, and kind of check your ego and what may come from a commission check down the line. Like, just put all of that behind and literally lean into the prospect, the customer, find out what they're trying to do. What do they care about? What does success look like for them? And just hustle and grind and add value, and they will be a customer for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I got nothing to add to that. Just keep adding value to that customer, and you'll get plenty of business in return. I think Bo still knows that. All right, next question comes from Tyler Kelly. Tyler's a friend of ours. Actually worked at a company with me a few years ago, and now he's not just a friend, but he's a client. So uses our software. So thank you, Tyler. Tyler asked the question, how do you narrow down and figure out specifically what your customer is really looking for? And I'm going to let Crawford take this one on.
Yeah, great question, by the way, Tyler. I look at this as we talk about the sales process and discovery being a step in that process. Yeah. I view narrowing it down as always doing discovery and being able to attach the discovery where you're learning about the account to their priorities, and then having them prioritize some of those priorities. So you're always kind of getting one layer deeper. I shared a story earlier on the previous podcast, great article where it's called Sales is a Broadway Play Performed by a Psychiatrist. And so the psychiatrist mindset there is when you talk to the customer for the first time, you're never getting the real problem. You got to care, you got to listen, you got to ask great questions. And at some point in time, you'll get down to the root of it, and you'll get there quicker by listening a lot.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. Recognizing, Tyler, that the customer's not going to come out normally and just tell you right off the bat, hey, here's my problem. They're going to say something like, hey, why don't you show me what you got, or I want to see some references. They'll give you some cover. But eventually, if you use Crawford's techniques, you'll get it out of them. But you have to be patient and ask a lot of questions. So good question, Tyler. Okay. Next question is from our friend William Russell. William asked the question, it's kind of a two-part question. What are the signs that you aren't talking to the decision maker? Second part of the question is, how do you transition to talking to them without offending your original point of contact? Both good questions, and I'll take the first one and Crawford will take the second one. So what are the signs you aren't talking to the decision maker? I would say things start to stretch out. You might get ghosted on some phone calls. You might not get your emails answered. There's just no explanation to why things aren't either moving forward or at least getting an answer to where we are. So when you start to feel fuzzy, many times your point of contact either is they don't have the power, or they're too scared, or maybe they know the answer is no and they don't want to tell you, but they don't want to communicate the truth to you for some reason. And what you're seeing as a result of that is some fuzziness, some smoke, some smoke on the horizon. So, I think those are the signs when things start to slow down, start to feel like maybe, you're not talking to the right person, or you need to talk to somebody else in addition to your decision maker. And I'll let Crawford handle the second part of the question.
Yeah, the second part of the question is, how do you transition to talking to them without offending the first point of contact? And it's a delicate situation, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
There's a methodology called MEDDIC or MEDPIC right now, which MEDDIC is metrics, executive sponsor, decision maker, decision criteria, implication of pain, and champion. And so if the person you're talking to right now is your champion but not your decision maker, then you almost have to build trust with the champion that in an ideal situation will take you to the decision maker, because the champion's invested in solving the problem. This means something to his or her career from a professional and a personal standpoint. And you'll know whether you have a champion or not under the MEDPIC framework if they're willing to take you to the decision maker. There's other tactics you can do, but the one I love is getting them to take you there together.
Yeah. And I'll add one more is sometimes you can get your top dog, your CEO, highest person you can get to cooperate, to directly contact their CEO and just say, hey, Charlie, this is Fred. Our people are talking about some kind of deal. I'd like to talk to you about it. That's kind of how we normally do things. You want to talk. And so I found when you do that without anybody's permission, you always get away with it. Because who can control what the hell the CEO does, right? They talk to each other.
Title to title.
Yeah, title to title. But if you ask permission for that, all hell would break loose. Four-alarm fire, their CEO, but if he just calls them and says, we're about to do some business, can we talk? And usually, if that happens, you find out everything, because those CEOs they'll tell the truth.
Yep.
Here's what's going on, right? They're not scared.
Yep.
All right, next question is from, oh boy, is this the Michael Pace?
It looks like the Michael Pace.
Wow, Michael Pace, one of the great all-time sales managers that we know. He's right here in Greenville, and at one time, I think he was managing 300 people, half of them in Latin America, from a cubicle.
It's a big
They
gig.
rented from me, like $200 a month. He's managing 300 people. Anyway, Michael, thanks for sending in the question. So the question is, if you're stalled out on a deal, you can't quite get them to commit one way or another, how can you kind of reframe things and get them thinking past the sale where you can learn more information and maybe win the deal? So Crawford, we'll let you handle this one.
I think you got to take them to the future.
Take them to the future.
Take them to the future.
Back to the future.
Perhaps one of the best questions that I like to ask, one of my favorite ones to kind of get them to see the forest through the trees, is to say, all right, let's fast forward. The project has been wildly successful. 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and you look back and you're like, I want to invest more in that project because it was wildly successful. What would we have achieved together? And when you take them to the future and they start thinking about what success looks like, you'll hear a lot. Like sometimes it'll be, in my world right now, like I want to retain my sellers, and I don't want them to leave the company by giving them a new modern way of prospecting and managing their deals.
Yeah.
Or you might learn that it has something to do with the culture and the alignment of the people. But in this situation, I want them to fast forward into the future and think about the outcomes that they're set out to achieve.
Nice. So take them back to the future.
Back to the future.
All right.
Michael
good
J.
answer.
Fox.
Michael J. Fox. All right, Michael, good question. So the next question is from my good friend Dwayne McMillan, or D-Mac, as he is known in the music world. D-Mac, amongst other things, is a fine guitar player and singer, and kind of a George Benson style. He's a really good player. Anyway, D-Mac was kind enough to send in a question: is the customer always right? And I got to tell you, Crawford, when I was a wee lad salesperson, I thought the answer was yes. They were always right, and we were going to make them all happy, and we were going to sell them all too.
Yep.
And boy, I mean, that'll drive you insane, right?
It will.
So, D-Mac, the answer is clearly no. They're not always right. In fact, I'd say roughly 10% of the time they're not right. So that's kind of been my rule of thumb. 10% of the prospects you talk to, you don't want to deal with. 10% of the time, what they're asking is not right. If they want you to do something for free, generally that's not right. If they want you to do something in a really crazy time that doesn't work for you, or maybe you've got something else going on, that's not always right. So again, I try to encourage people to always think about this being equal business stature. So, just because we're trying to sell something, that's kind of a way that we've kind of put it in our minds, is we're selling them something. I think what we're really doing is we're arranging some kind of swap, right? We're swapping some services, some music, some time, some advice, some connections for some dollars, right? Or some other thing that we might be trading for. But it's kind of like a swap meet, and I don't think that we should put ourselves below anybody and say, well, they're always right, we're going to do just what they tell them. And I know you don't either. Dwayne is really good about holding his prices and kind of doing business on his terms. So I would say the customer's not always right. Most of the times they are, but about 10% of the time I would say no, and you should stay away from those folks. You got anything to add there, Craw?
In my world, when I think about the customer going down the wrong path, they're not right about how they're thinking about the decision. So I always try to bring them back to center and help them, and maybe challenge them in a little way to get them to think about the project differently. Because in my world, sometimes they have the wrong set of features they're thinking about, right? And so pause with the customer, be super transparent, and say, based on what we're seeing and other companies we talk to, you might want to think about evaluating us this way. Mm-hmm. So it's almost steering the customer back down
for their own good.
For their own good.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's good. Okay, D-Mac, there you go.
D-Mac in the house.
Next question is from Jason Moore. Jason is, amongst other things, a fantastic tenor sax player up in the Asheville, Hendersonville area, and also teaches and writes and does all kind of cool stuff. So Jason's a cool guy, and he sent in a question, might be related to teaching saxophone, but he says, what's the difference between selling like a product and selling something that is more of a service that includes time and, maybe it takes a while for it to happen? So kind of a service-oriented something versus a product-oriented something. And I'll take a stab at it, and then Crawford, if you want to jump in, you please do. But selling used to be much simpler, way back when, where it was like, I got a thing and you got the money and, do you want to buy it or don't you? And then we'd kind of walk away. I mean, to some degree, we'd sell a big software deal, and then it was kind of like, implementation people are coming and we're going to move on to the next thing. Well, nowadays, in software anyway, and in a lot of things, everything is priced on a monthly basis, software as a service. So everything has to be sold in terms of a kind of a long-term continuum. How is this going to help you over the very long term? How is it going to get better every month, every quarter, every year? And to the point where you're going to be happy continuing to pay us. So if we're bringing you $100 of value a month and you're happy to pay us $10, and it's a good deal all around. So I would say, Jason, in your world, you should try to position everything as a longer term delivery. And what I mean by that, and I'll use saxophone teaching as an example, But, you could say saxophone lessons cost, $60 an hour. And do you want a lesson or don't you? Right, the old-fashioned way. Or you can get a group of 3 lessons and $60 an hour. Do you want the 3 lessons or don't you? And I think in the SaaS world, what I could translate from software to the music world is, I would position it more as, Crawford, you're right here right now as a saxophone player. You're a advanced beginner or barely an intermediate or medium, whatever you are. And I'm going to work with you every week for the next year, and I'm going to get you to this place right here. And that's going to cost you this much a month or this much a year, and you're going to have to practice, 20 hours a week or whatever, whatever the deal is. And if you want to keep going after that, we'll keep going. But just like you would sell a SaaS deal. So I would encourage you to think of it more in terms of a longer term, month by month kind of deal where they're getting a service and a deliverable in terms of how good they get at something versus, I can sell you a batch of 6 lessons kind of thing. So that's my long-winded answer. I hope it's helpful, and I hope it doesn't, cost me any money in our negotiation. But go ahead, Crawford.
No, I think you nailed it. I think it's short-term versus long-term, but the mindset's still the same, right? You want to make the customer happy with whatever it is, the product or the service. The service is just continuously. So you have to continue to earn the trust of the customer with the service versus the product.
Yeah. So the last question today comes from Jacob North. Good question, Jacob. So you want to know, when you're hiring, what do you look for when I'm hiring a salesperson, a brand new salesperson? So I'll give you my answer, and then Crawford can give you his. Why don't you go first, Crawford?
Wow, this is a fantastic question, and I'm hiring salespeople left and right, so it's very timely too. There's a few things I look for. There's the discipline aspect of what I'm trying to find. What I mean by discipline is, how do they manage and arrange their day? If you ask the question, tell me what your morning routine is, and you see a deer in the headlights, I'm not super interested in going deeper with that person. But if I hear, I get up at 5, I'm at the gym by 6, I read a book to get better from 7 to 7:30, and then I start making my calls. Like, there's a disciplined structure to their day, because what we do right now is our time is so freaking valuable.
Yeah.
And it's stretched thin, especially when a lot of us are at home and kids are working from home. So I look for discipline around work ethic. The other thing, and it's a little softer, but character and heart go big for me, hand in hand in the sales profession. Because the minute you try to pull the wool over someone's eyes or apply a tactic or a trick in sales, we sell at Sales Off to sales executives. And there's a lot of, they've read all the books.
Yeah.
So I really try to go deep in the hiring process around character and heart and just literally caring about the problem. The minute you lose their trust with a CRO or head of sales, you're out.
Yeah.
You're out.
Cool. Those are good ones. I would add to that, there's a few things I like is I want to get somebody, depending on where I want them to sell. So if I want them to sell in a certain geography, I want to pull them from that geography. I'd like it them to be from the school, one of the schools that are right there in the area. I'd like it if they were from that area. So if I want them to sell there, I want them to know, the culture and be more likely to stay in that area. So that's one thing. Another is, I prefer it if they're competitive people, like they've competed in sports or intramurals. If they held some kind of rank in college, meaning they were head of the debate club or head of their fraternity, or just kind of people who are doing more stuff. If they have any sales experience at all, that's a plus. If they're coming in excited about the time they sold, floats at the pool, in the summertime, or worked at university directories, or even were waiters or waitresses and made tips, but something where they're out there with the public and money's moving around, it changes things. And then lastly, I believe in these testing profiling deals. And so I've got, hundreds and hundreds of tests on people and seeing how they've done as inside people, outside people, managers, see what those scores look like. And so I don't go exclusively by those, but I generally want to see that they're in the right band for what I've seen in the past. So yeah, we both look at a bunch of stuff, but it's important. And it's also important that the new people get in the right position. That they don't just go into some place because they got lucky.
You don't ask Dennis Rodman to shoot a three-pointer.
That's right. That's right. Well, anyway, Crawford, thanks for staying around longer and helping me finish these questions.
It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thank you, man.